In this video, I want to look at the three new functions that are introduced in the first part of Lesson 11. And those are the INT function, the round function, and the TRUNC function. So the first function, the INT function, actually stands for integer. And as you'll recall from math classes, an integer is a whole number, a number without fractional parts like a decimal or a fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and click in C6, which is where I want to enter my function. And what I'm going to do is enter the integer measurement for each of these values in column B. So I'm going to start out, I'm going to type this particular function, so I'll start with an equal sign. Then I'm typing INT on the keyboard, and you'll see that as I do that, I get a list of functions that start with the letter I, and as I add more letters, it filters out a good number of the functions. So as you can see, the INT is highlighted. So I'm going to go ahead and press the Tab key on my keyboard to accept that and enter the function into the cell. You can see that this particular function has only one argument, number, and I'm going to get that number from cell B6. So I'm going to go ahead and click on B6 and press enter. And you can see then that it has changed this number from a mixed number to an integer or a whole number. And then I would go ahead and copy down. So the integer function does not do any rounding, as you can tell from looking at it, because of course 7.8 would be rounded up to 8 and 5.6 would round up to 6 and so forth. So if you want to round or want your answer to be rounded from the function, you would use a round function, and you can specify how many digits you want rounded or where you want to round to. Now, there is a certain amount of rounding that takes place in the worksheet already. For example, if I set the decimal places for this particular cell down here, the 9.736 to 2, it will round that number off to 9.74. So up here in cell G6, I'm going to click on the Formula tab, and in the function library, I'm going to go to the Math and Trig functions and scroll down to the R's, and I'm going to choose round. And round, as you can see, has two arguments. And it tells you here that this function rounds a number to a specified number of digits. So I can specify how many digits I want. So the number argument, of course, will be the value in cell F6. And the number of digits, I'm going to specify 0. Or I could say 2. Or I could say -2. So 0 and negative numbers round to the left of the decimal. Whole numbers 1, 2, 3, or positive numbers 1, 2, 3, so forth, will round off the decimal places to the right of the decimal point. So then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And you can see that it's rounded that number off. And if I drag it down, you'll see that it is applying the rounding rule here. The final function that's introduced in the first part of the lesson here is TRUNC, which stands for truncate. And I'm going to go ahead and type the truncate function in, starting out with an equal sign and TRU. And you'll see that truncate is the second option, so I'm going to double click that. That's another way of getting it into the cell. Now if you look at the screen tip, you'll see that truncate has two arguments, number and number of digits. So number again would be the number I want to truncate, which is in cell B23. I then will type a comma to separate the function arguments. And I'm going to tell Excel how many digits I want that truncated to. And truncate works best basically the same way as the round function. So I'm going to say 0 digits for now and go ahead and press enter. And so as you can see, it's truncated that number to 9. It did not round, but it merely cuts it off at 9. So let's go ahead then and click on C23 again, and I'm going to edit that function and change the number of digits to 2. And this time it cut the number off after the 3. But again, didn't round because if I were rounding, it should round up to 9.74. So let's compare that to the round function. I'm going to go ahead and enter a round function in C24. And again, I'm using B23 as the number. And I want to round to 2 decimal places, so I'm going to enter a 2 for the number of digits. And as you can see, this time it did apply rounding. So that's the main difference between truncate and round. Truncate cuts the number off at the number of digits you specify. Round rounds to the number of digits that you specify. In the next video, we'll look at some financial functions, payment, and future value.